I'm Dwayne Schrader here again with this month's edition of Reflections. Last month we heard about the early blessings of our St. John's congregation. In 1945, it was apparent that the congregation needed additional worship space. The voters contemplated expanding the brick church, but also considered the possibility of an entirely new site. God guided the members to purchase the Sprague Farm on the north limits of Caledonia. Construction of the new church building began in the summer of 1947. The rock was quarried east of Caledonia by members of the congregation. The building of the church evoked many memories from current members.
Yeah, I can remember on the new church, they had regular schedules where the members, I don't know if they were assigned or they just signed up, where they had a work day. And that's how they built it, basically, because they had an architect, and then any of the grunt work was done by the members of the church. It was a one-sack cement mixer. And they put it all in the forms by wheelbarrows. and when they quarried the rock, that was quarried down in we call it the Gangler quarry. And they couldn't blast it. They had to pry it apart with bars, because they said if they blast, it puts little cracks in the rocks. Yeah, so they had to layer by layer take bars and haul it all up there in wagons. There were mostly wagons back then. Pile it up.
They brought the rock in and they put it on the southeast corner of the lot of the church. That'd be the road that goes to the east and the west from the church, and they'd have the rocks there. And then I remember my dad, he brought his horses up, and they had a gunboat. That's that real low on the ground, so they could just lift the rock up on the gunboat, and then they'd haul them over to the church, and they hauled them over onto the north-south end of the church. They'd have a big pile of rock, and they had guys who were there, they would split the rock. And when they split the rock, they knew just how to split the rock, because they would follow the seam of the rock, and that would make it pop open real easy. And then they had, what do you call it, the masons. The masons would pick up that rock, and then they would lay them and do everything else, get them level and everything else. And it was quite a job to have them do that. Yeah, and I also remember when they put the lightning rods up on the church. His name was Milo Fione, and I don't remember his partner, but that was quite a sight to see him climb way up.
And then, of course, when we came to building our present church, that was really good, because all the rock was quarried down on the east side of Caledonia. Pastor Gergel was quarrying every day with the rest of the men, and every one of those blocks outside was quarried there. Pastor Gergel's hands were bleeding most days, because he was there with all of the rest who volunteered to come that day. At that time, my husband Arnold, he had to work on the farm, and of course Pastor Gergel would tell him, now would you bring your truck this afternoon after you're done working and at the farm, and go do this and go do that, and go to La Crosse, either bring sand or bring the cut stone for around the windows and the doors. He had to bring them all to drop to Mr. Gilliam up here, who was building the church.
Yeah, I can remember going down to the quarry with my dad, quarrying rock. And then, of course, Uncle Hermie and Irvin, they had the truck, you know, they hauled it up, took turns. I remember especially the north end here, they were pouring cement oh, it was up underneath the eaves or whatever, plastering or whatever. I helped him carry some buckets up. I helped him carry some stones up when they were laying it.
On March 6, 1949, the building was dedicated to the service of the Lord. It cost $175,000. Hopefully, you will all be with us next month's edition of Reflections.